Hey, this is Stan. This is another Philosophy Drive, although it is another session of Philosophy Park, because I'm parked now. Today we're going to talk about classic logic and how it gets you stuff for free, and that's awesome. We're also going to talk about how if the thing you get for free is unacceptable to you, you can use some dirty tricks in order to not get there. And I say this not to imply that you should be doing this, but so you can recognize it when other people do it. So, let's talk about classical logic and getting stuff for free. Okay, so let's take premise A. All working cars have engines in them. All working cars have engines in them. B. My car works. Okay. Now, if those two things are true, then my car has an engine in it. Okay, so let's say that whole thing is true. It's a true chain of logic. Let's also say that A and B are both true. So, all working cars have engines in them, and my car works. Now, you have those three truths. If those things are true, guess what? I get truth for free. My car has an engine in it is a free conclusion that I get by virtue of classical logic. And that's great. It's so cool that I just get that truth for free. But what if I didn't want that free truth? What if I didn't like that conclusion for whatever reason? Well, there are some things you can do. And what you do is you make it so that you introduce ambiguity or incoherence or many-facedness. So in this example, we could say, okay, well, all cars that are working have engines in them. My car, I don't know if it's working. Okay, well, now suddenly it's ambiguous. The truth value is ambiguous. I don't know if it's working. Excuse me. Well, now we can't get to the conclusion, because now I'm unsure what that truth value is. Alright, all working cars have engines in them. And my car, it's working and it's not working. Well, that's kind of ambiguous too. In fact, it's actually incoherent. It's working and it's not working. That's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. Okay, what if I said, okay, all working cars have engines in them, and my car is pleasing? Well, a pleasing car usually implies that it works, but does it necessarily? Like, it might just mean, oh, it looks good sitting out in the driveway, even though it doesn't actually work. So you're using a word that can have double faces. Like, is it pleasing in terms of functionality, or is it pleasing in terms of aesthetics? Is it pleasing as in I can get in and when I sit down it's comfortable? It's like, I don't know. It has different faces. And all of these things kind of imply the same thing. Like, they are all ambiguity. And they all say, I don't know the truth value of that premise. And so you can't get to the conclusion because you didn't know the truth values of the premises on which that conclusion was based. So, in the real world, often what happens is you have this acceptable A, benign B, and it leads, logically, there is a logical bridge to a difficult D. Why is the D difficult? It might be complicated. It might be hard to figure out. It might imply that a bunch of things that you believed are not good anymore. Which is, you struggle with that kind of stuff. It might lead to something literally dangerous. Like, it might be dangerous to society, this conclusion. It might appear, even though it doesn't, it might appear to lead to a zany Z, which is something like super dangerous and would seem to be implied by the difficulty, even though it's not. Alright, so there's all these reasons, and you might say, Stan, there are responsible ways to deal with those problems. If something is complicated, spend the time figuring it out. Noodle it up. If it is dangerous, okay, we'll kind of put together some devices to mitigate that danger. If it appears to throw into question a bunch of the things you believed, well, maybe it's time to throw those things into question. Like, maybe that's the responsible thing to do. And if it appears to lead to a zany Z, well, figure out if it actually does, because I'm not sure it does. So you might say, Stan, that's the way to deal with the difficulty. That's the responsible thing to do. That's the non-cheaty way. Well, what if we want to cheat? What if we want to make the difficulty not come about through less savory mechanisms? Well, here's what you do. You just wedge into the premises something that is ambiguous, incoherent, or ill-defined, or many-faced. Often in practice, this is mystical stuff. And because mystical stuff, we kind of have this feeling that it's okay if it's ill-defined. It's okay if we can't or won't talk about it. It's okay if this thing has multiple facets such that you can't draw any conclusions from. You have this feeling that mystical stuff lets us do this. Now, however much you think might be fine or not fine, the fact is that allows people to take some kind of mystical object and use it as a shoehorn for whatever they want. They'll just wedge it in there and just say, whatever I want happens. And they're able to do this because ambiguity is intangible. You can't address it. You swing your sword and it passes right through like a ghost. So what you'll often see when talking about certain things that have acceptable A's and benign B's but difficult D's is you'll have people that want to introduce things and that are ill-defined. And you say, wait, hold on a second. I want to be able to swing my sword at you and hit something. You got to tell me what exactly that means, unambiguously, coherently, and with a single face. It's your burden to give me a definition. And if they cannot do that, then it is a sign that they are cheating their way to stop that difficult D from coming about.